Yo, what's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome to another episode to the Latin Wealth podcast. Hopefully you guys are doing good. I'm doing pretty good. I'm out here in Florida enjoying this weather, and we have another guest on this podcast today. And on this podcast, we've had this guest on multiple different times. He's not new to this podcast. And when it comes to investing in crypto, real estate, tech, AI, everything to that nature, this is somebody that has been an educator in this space for some time now. And now he's sharing even more of his knowledge about AI and really the future of investing. So it's a pleasure to have him back on the platform. Welcome, Armando, aka Tall Guy Tycoon. How you doing today, bro?
I'm good, man. And you?
Doing pretty good. Excited to have you on. I think there's a lot of people that obviously they follow you, they know your story, they know your background. But for the people that don't, can you give them just like a 5-minute overview of your background and how you got into entrepreneurship? And for the audience out there, we want to do something a little different today. We want to give you guys some practical steps for business and what to do, like when you're ready to sell your business or if you need to pivot in your business. We want to give you guys some practical steps today. So go ahead and take the floor, share with the people, how you got into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So first time I ever had any entrepreneurial type thing in my life was when I was 15. Me and my brother, we started a lawn mowing service in my neighborhood. So we went around cutting people's yards. We put them on subscriptions. We had business cards, we had invoices, all this stuff that we really probably didn't need, but it was like, we thought we were running like a real business. So, but it did give me some business skills early on. And that's what kind of like ignited the spark, I should say, for being an entrepreneur. So later on, I ended up going to college. So early in college, first or second year, I wanted to study abroad in Mexico. But I didn't have the money. I come from a poor family. So it was expensive though. And Pell Grant and stuff didn't cover it. So I had to figure out a way to come up with some money. So before then, I always was able to find ways to make small amounts of money. Like I hustle here and there, but I had to make a lot. So I went on eBay and I knew that people were making money on eBay. I just didn't know how. So I searched till I found a product that had a big margin. And that product was old Nintendos, refurbished Nintendos, or 8-bit Nintendos, the great boxes from the 80s. And this was around the time where like retro gaming started to take over. People wanted to, PlayStation 1 just came out.
Got it.
Sega Saturn and the next generation gaming had just started. But a lot of people were looking back on those old games.
The old stuff, yeah.
And they wanted to play those, to bring back some memories. Nostalgic, yeah. So I saw these Nintendos on eBay selling for $160. And I'm like, why did he? And I know me and my mom back in those days, we would always go to Goodwill and yard sales. It was like a hobby just to go to these places and look what they have. And I know I saw Nintendos at Goodwill and yard sales and stuff for like $20. I'm like, what's the difference between the ones they sell online and the ones that are in Goodwill? So I kept looking and looking. I read the description, whatever, and I figured out is that the ones that were on eBay were refurbished. That means that they cleaned up the inside. They repaired all the paint on the outside or whatever. So they look as close to new as they can get it. And they did one thing. They went in, opened the box, and there was a 72-pin connector inside. And which when you put the cartridge in, that's how the game connected to the circuit board, and that's how you were able to play the games. And that was a big problem, is that people would have to blow into these games to put the games in. And the reason why is because these pins were worn out. They would get like bent, and then dust would get in between of it, so you couldn't really. The game said it couldn't connect.
So I was going to say, so blowing on the game, I know it wasn't crazy back then. It was actually helping it out.
Yeah, because if you look at it on a microscopic level, the pins, if there was any dust in between those pins, it wouldn't connect, so the game wouldn't work. So you had to it had to be dust free. But if you went in there and you each pin you like unbent it, now the connection was tight and it would push all the dust out. So it would work every time.
Got it.
So that was the difference, right? And it took about 5 minutes to open the Nintendo and clean it all up, rub it with alcohol, using sandpaper to scrape out off any rust, and then use a little like bobby pin to each one of those pins, just push it back up. And then clean out the outside. Now you got a $106 Nintendo.
And you sell it on eBay.
Sell it on eBay for $160. And I was selling like 50 to 100 a week.
Wow.
So what I would do is on Monday morning, I'd wake up and I'd list 50 units. sell them all within 5-6 hours,
Hmm.
maybe 100 units. Then I would spend the rest of the week driving around and sourcing them, coming home, cleaning them, and sending them out.
That's
So I did
crazy.
that, raised them. I had way more money than I needed to go to Mexico.
Yeah.
And that was my first big entrepreneur effort that I made a lot of money on.
Hmm.
And then later on, I ended up graduating college. I still had that entrepreneur bug. I went and got a job. I played ball in Puerto Rico for a year and a half.
Hmm.
But after that, I went pro ball. I don't want to say pro. wasn't just playing.
They thought you were on the street playing.
No,
No,
I
you're
wasn't
playing pro.
I was playing pro ball. I was getting paid. It wasn't that much, but it was getting paid to play basketball.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to like. It
Yeah.
wasn't enough at all. But after that, I went on and I came back to the States and I took a job at an artificial intelligence company called EdgeNet. It was in 2000. This was 2007. It was one of the first. It was one of the early. It was an early artificial intelligence called Expert System, which is a subset of artificial intelligence. So I was doing that work as a software engineer, and I liked it, but I still had that bug, right? So 2009, I moved to Florida to go to grad school, and while I was in grad school, I started my second company called APAN. APAN Software. The first 3 years, I made a lot of money. Now the company, I didn't expect it to grow that fast, so I didn't have things organized the right way. And I only had one lead source, right? And that was Google. So people would search for my name search for software in Tampa, my page would come up first every time. So that's how I got all my leads and that's how I made all my money. And I really didn't think that I needed to prepare, for anything happening to that lead source. One day I wake up in the morning, Google changed its algorithm. I'm now on page 50 for every single one of my pages.
Wow.
No more leads come in. The company starts falling. I take out bad loans to try to save it. And it just kept falling. Finally, I ended the company, ended up with $180,000 in loans.
Wow.
And I had to pay it off. So tried to go bankrupt. It didn't work. So I had to pay it off. So I went back and got a high-paying software engineer job at AAA here in Tampa. And I also worked at night at the university teaching. So I did both of those jobs for 2.5 years till I paid off all of that debt. And then I was at a point, I'm like, man, I want to start another company. But I had a business partner this time in Tampa. So we started another one called ICL Ranker. We built it the right way. We built it so that we could sell it. We kept the books clean, everything, all that stuff. So we built it. ICL Ranker was a website that ranked cryptocurrencies early. This was in 2017. It used artificial intelligence to try to choose which cryptos would do well. And it was one of the biggest crypto sites on the planet at one time. We ended up selling it for $2.5 million. 6 months in, publicly traded company in Canada bought it from us, $2.5 million plus stock. And then we handed it right. It was the books were clean, the website was clean. We just handed it right over to them. It took about a day, and they sent us the money, and that was it.
Wow.
And I used that money since then to invest in real estate, stocks, crypto. I've done a lot of stuff since then. So
okay. Cool. So you said a lot there. And the reason why I want to have this conversation, because we've had a couple different people on the podcast come on here and give great information on where to find funding for your business, like how to get funding and how to get started, and we've even had people on here in the midst of entrepreneurship, but we haven't had a conversation of like when to pivot and how to set up your business so you can sell it and exit. And that's something that you talk about a lot. Whenever you start a business, always have the end in mind.
exactly.
So, walk us through some of the things that maybe some of the mistakes that you went through in your first business that you knew in the second business that you weren't going to make those mistakes. And just walk us through like the process of setting up your business so you can sell it and you can have an exit. And then we'll have a conversation about like what that exit even looks like.
Yeah. So I always preach you always have to have an exit plan in everything you do. Anytime you make a financial decision, you have to have the end in mind at the beginning. And that's what we had with ICL Rank. I didn't have that with APAN. I was just making money and going day by day. And that was a big mistake because the end comes eventually for everything. So you can either control the end or you can't. I didn't control APAN's end. The system controlled it and they pushed me out, So I didn't control that. But with ICL Ranker, the second company, I controlled how that ended. That's because I thought from the beginning, I planned it for an end to come. Now, I didn't know what end it would be. I didn't know I would sell it, but I knew that one day somebody's going to acquire it. Somebody's either going to invest in it, which means that's an end that people don't realize that is that when you grow a company and and like Mark Zuckerberg, right? I believe Mark Zuckerberg owns 50% of Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
His exit was selling half the company. So
Mm-hmm.
half the company is public. That's why it trades on the stock market.
Yep.
His exit, the reason why he's a billionaire is one, because of his company ownership, but two is because he sold Facebook. He
Mm-hmm.
sold half of it. He still owns majority owner, but he sold it. That's his exit. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a form of exit that a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
When they go to the stock market, it's their exit. So regardless of your exit, you give it to your kids. Your kids may not want your business,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a big thing that people don't realize.
Yeah.
So you give it to your kids, you lose it to somebody else, somebody acquires it, or somebody invests in it. Regardless of what for those things that could happen, it all has to be, the business has to be done in the right way, which means the books have to be clean.
Books meaning
The books, which means the money coming in and out has to
Yeah.
be clean. It can't be an intermingling of funds. I can't, and a lot of times people don't understand this, that it's okay to buy let's say a Range Rover on your business. But the thing about it is, if I'm going to a company, if I'm planning on selling it, let's say we would have sold ICO Ranker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I would have bought a Range Rover in the first 6 months, that would have been against the profits of the company when you
Wow.
sell it. Because when you sell a company, it goes by multiple, which means sometimes it's yearly or sometimes it's monthly. It could be like 36 months, 7 years, or whatever. So it goes by profit or revenue per month or profit per month. So for example, if I use up all my profit going on trips and buying Range Rovers, at the end of the year, I may show zero profit. I don't have to pay taxes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But then when somebody wants to buy the company, they say, well, why are we going to buy your company? It says you got zero here. You're just going to explain them that you spent all the money.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look like a bad business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Or why would you spend all the money on a Range Rover you didn't need? Now I don't trust the whole business.
Yeah, that's interesting because you got a lot of people preaching, to write off everything.
Sometimes it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes everything's not black and white. Like if you can't spend all the money to show a zero on the tax return because you save your money in taxes, but now nobody's going to acquire the business. Which you can make a lot more in acquisition than you could on the day-to-day profit. Because sometimes tech companies sell for 10 years of profits. So you make 10 years of what you would have made right now. And they take the company. Like our company sold, I think, for like 3-4 years of profits, maybe 3 or 4 years of profits right at one time.
Wow.
Right. So if your profit is shown as lower, then you're not going to get that kind of money because you spent it all on a Range Rover. So it's not worth it. But
so get your books right.
The books have to be right. That's what I'm saying is that you want to show profit. And I know that you're going to pay taxes on it, but the first thing when somebody acquires your business, they want to see the tax returns. Yeah. Right. And in our case, we didn't have tax returns because it was so short, but they wanted to see the bank account. They wanted to see, we took some payments in Bitcoin, so they wanted to see all the transactions in Bitcoin. They wanted to see where the money came in and out in the bank accounts. They did a full audit, and it took them 60 days for them to do that audit. So it took them 60 days. They look over every transaction. We had to explain stuff that didn't like match up or whatever.
And during this time, how were you feeling? Were you guys nervous? Were you like, oh, we're good, everything's lined up the way it should be?
The thing about it, during that time in my mind, I put it in my mind that something was going to happen and they wasn't going to buy it. And the reason I did that is because I didn't want to get let down. And two is I wanted to continue business operations as if it wasn't going to happen. Because some people would say, oh, we're going to sell it, so why even keep trying? So I kept pushing the pace, kept moving it, kept building. Because in my mind, I just put it and said, look, man, it's a good chance they're not going to buy this. And I did that to convince myself. So my partner was like, nah, why would they go through this? And I was like, nah, man, they're not going to buy it because I wanted to make sure I kept pushing in case they chose not to. But when you do a due diligence, they send you have some earnest money. And that money is, so they've already put some like 10% down. So then they're able to see the books and they'll do all this stuff.
So they'll send that 10% and they'll say, look, we're interested in buying the company.
It's held with the broker.
Got it.
So the broker has that money. So most of the time, if somebody goes down that path of due diligence, they're going to buy it unless you've done some kind of crazy, fraud or something doesn't look right. They've already saw most of it. So this is just to make sure they're making the right decision, make sure there's nothing attached to the business, making sure the money is what you say it is, and then they buy it. So that's the due diligence part. And so during that part, it's like you just have to answer questions or whatever. At the end, they say, yeah, we're going to buy it. And in this case, they actually, we were going to get $3 million, but they lowered it because one of the things in due diligence is they try to find ways to devalue your company. They will look for ways to devalue it, right? So what happened is that the month before we sold it, our profit dropped a little bit. So that affected the multiple. So we end up losing $500,000 because
Wow.
1 month it dropped a little bit, and they would
Mm.
not budge on that.
Wow.
Right. So we ended up losing 500,000 because the multiple drop. I mean, the last month profit dropped right before they closed the sale.
So how does that negotiate? Is there a negotiation this whole time, or is it just like, hey, this is what we're gonna give you, and that's it?
It's an original negotiation. First, you put it up for sale, what you want for it. Then they say, yeah, we're going to buy it or whatever. And then
Where do you put it up for sale at?
Through a broker.
Got
They
it.
have business brokers. So people, just like a real estate agent, they have people that broker. That's all they do all day is broker businesses.
Interesting.
So you have a business broker. That's why it's good to have relationships with people because you get the right business broker with the right connections. You can sell it for a lot more than like throwing it on Flippa or something. Like I don't know, people don't know, but Flippa's a site where you sell websites at.
Yeah, websites.
Yeah, but if you you get more if you go through a business broker or a website broker.
You go through a broker.
You go through a broker, and then so you put it up for a price, and then somebody says, "Hey, we'll pay for that. We'll buy it for you at the price that you have for sale." And then they'll go through the due diligence, and that due diligence is a good chance for them to bring. That's when they negotiate. They try to find something wrong, and they'll come back at you and say, "Look, we can't give you what you asked, but we're going to give you this," right? And then that's when the negotiation starts. So one thing that we were able to do is that's when we negotiated for the stock instead of the cash, because they lowered the cash what we were going to get. Instead of getting $3 million, we ended up with 2.5. But then we were able to cover that with some stock and what's called warrants. Warrants are a type of stock asset, but you have it's almost like an option where if their stock did go up, we were locked in at, let's say at the time it was 10 cents. So we were locked in at 10 cents on the warrants. And that was the current price of that stock was like 10 cents. So if the stock went up to, let's say 40 cents, we had the right for 2 years to buy those stocks at 10 cents no matter what.
Wow.
So, so even if it was 30 cents, we could just call them up and say, hey man, we want to exercise our warrants, and then we have to pay for the stock, right? We can instantly sell it and get the 30%. That's the way that you protect the downside in case what you sold blew up.
And how did you guys learn about that? Where did you get that information?
My business partner knew about that. Yeah.
Wow. So
I didn't even know that it existed.
So, and you said you get stock in their company,
so
right?
You get stock in their company, plus you also get warrants.
Yeah.
So the warrants were on top of the stock we got. So the stock is, so you'll get and that's another thing about the stock I'll talk about later, is that I think we got like $300,000 or $400,000 in stock and $100,000 in warrants. The warrants ended up being worthless because the stock never significantly past the 10 cents. It actually went down.
Wow.
So we weren't able to exercise those warrants. But the stock we ended up selling, and we made good money on that because we got the stock for nothing. So it's free stock, so
free money.
You just whatever the price is, it don't matter. So, but the problem with stock is that you have to sell it because we had a lockup period of 90 days. So in that 90 days, you cannot sell the stock because they're scared you're going to dump it on the market. So after the 90 days is over, the problem is that when you have the ability to sell a stock, let's say you got $300,000 worth of stock in an account, the government sees it as you just got $300,000. And it's no different than stock, dollars, gold, it don't matter. So at the end of the year, you owe taxes on $300,000. It don't matter let's say if you held the stock and it ended up dropping down to zero, when tax time comes around, they don't care what the stock is at now. You got $300,000 in stock on this day. Wow. So you owe us taxes on. So you got to be careful with that. And we had to sell a bunch of it just to cover the taxes that was coming.
That's crazy. All right. So this is definitely good information, very intriguing. So you post what you want to sell it at. The company's coming to you guys and they're negotiating, they're doing the due diligence, they're checking their books. Is there anything else that they're checking? Are they checking like anything personal about you guys?
No, not really. They didn't even know. They never saw my face during the whole transaction. I wasn't on social media then.
Got it.
So that's the thing I like about tech, is that you can build something great. And there's a lot of bias in the world. There's a lot of people that it may not like you for what you look like, your name or whatever like that, but they don't even know who you are. They didn't know my name until the due diligence started. They didn't even know. They just was dealing with, ICO with the broker. So they met me on the day of the sale when we were sending assets over. They were going through the checklist and they sent the money over when it was all done.
And how does that money how does that process work when they're sending the money over? They just drop it in your bank
Yeah,
account?
it's
Okay.
crazy. It's just like that, man.
And so
It's like,
talk about that moment because just before that you were saying that look, you were working two jobs, you basically bankrupt, you know, family and all this stuff. And you built something up in 6 months. What was that feeling like when you guys sold the company
it wasn't
officially?
even like I didn't even, like you said, I didn't get excited, and then it was so surreal that it didn't like it didn't hit me even to now. Like
Mm,
it didn't hit me that it was real money. I don't know what that was.
mm,
Is that I remember me and my business partner, we had to, the day of the sale, we had to, like, they had a checklist. They need the passwords to this. They need the code for this. They
mhm,
need that. It was a long list, and we would send it over, and then there are people, the lawyers would check it off. Then we had to send this over, send it over, send it over. And at the end of the process, well, we would check everything, make sure everything was okay, and then they sent over the wire transfer
mhm.
to the broker. And then the broker takes their cut, then they send the rest to us. So we
Mhm.
got the money that day.
Wow.
So and then it's another 10% that's held in some kind of escrow just in case down the line they
Mhm,
need something from us. Because at
mhm,
the time we're on like contract to
mhm,
anything they ask for the next 90 days, we have to be on call. It's another part of the
mhm.
sale is that
Yeah,
for
yeah.
24 hours, they got, anytime they ask us a question, we got to respond in
You gotta
24 hours,
respond.
or it affects that money that's held in that escrow, the last 10%.
Mhm.
And they never called us for anything. So
Wow. So I'm sure there's people out there wondering, like, okay, well, do I need to be in tech to sell my company? What type of business can be sold? Can it be any company? Like, what does that look
any
like?
company can be sold, and that's what I tell people, is that it's a viable way to look at your business, right? Is
Mhm,
that when you have a business, you also, you carry risk also.
mhm.
Cash has no risk because it's in the bank.
Yeah.
You see, in that, and people need to look at more about building a business to sell. Because let's say I have a business, so I got businesses, I got real estate, so I got, but long as you carry an asset, it also has risk. The risk can go to zero. The risk is the asset can go to zero. There's a liability. Somebody can come in one of my properties, hurt themselves.
Mhm,
Now I'm getting sued. If I got cash in the bank, that's almost zero liability. What can happen except for the US falling,
mhm,
right? That's it. So one way that you reduce risk in your life is you sell assets off.
mhm.
And a business is an asset. So I don't, like, a lot of people say, well, I'm gonna keep my business, I'm gonna let nobody get it. But as long as you carry it, you also carry that risk.
The risk.
So it is a way to build wealth is to just sell some assets, including businesses.
No, that's really interesting because, like you said earlier, some people are thinking like, "Oh, I want to create generational wealth. I want to pass this business on
The
to my
kid may not
kids."
even want it.
The kids may not even want it, and I think I seen something recently where generational wealth it like deteriorates after two generations or
Yeah,
something like that.
it's
So
hard to keep that anyway. You can
it,
keep it up to your grandkids, but then it starts. My mom said a quote to me the other day. She said, "Good men make easy times, but then
mm,
easy times make bad men."
mm,
So what happens is that, let's say, for example, I went through bad times, so I consider myself, I'm a good man.
yeah,
My son, he's in easy times now.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
Hopefully
yeah,
he turns out to be a good man. But
yeah,
let's say he turns out to be a good man. His son's going to be in even easier time. So he
yeah,
may end up being a bad man. And then the whole cycle starts. You blow all the generational money. That's
hmm,
what happens.
yeah.
Is that he don't know about saving money and
Mhm.
struggling. He just gets the money and just blows it all.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. So, look, take us back to the first business. What are some of the mistakes that you made in that business that you would recommend to people out there to prevent, or even in the future that like, okay, I've made this mistake before. I'm not doing that again. Give us like three mistakes that you made.
I thought about this a lot,
Mm,
a lot over the years. And I would say the top three is one is I should have been more careful with the money.
mm.
And what I mean by that is
And
that
were you the only, not to cut you off, my bad, but
it's
were you the
okay.
only person in the business? It was just you?
It was just me.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
that's another thing, a
Mm,
point I want to touch on. But I was one of the biggest mistakes I made is that I let things affect me too much. I was young. I was younger than you are now, and one of the biggest mistakes I made is that I had an office that was close to downtown St. Pete. It wasn't a great office. It was
mm,
okay. Uh, and I remember one dude came in and he looked at my office. He said, "Man, this is a bad office." A client or something said.
mm.
No, everybody. I was making good money and everything. And one dude said he didn't like the office, so he didn't trust me to do business.
Wow.
You know, and I let that one dude get in
Affected.
my head.
Yeah.
The next week, I canceled that cheap office, which at the time was $200 a month. And it was a big office. It was probably like 700 square feet. It was 4 people working in there.
Wow.
And I canceled that office and went downtown and paid $2,000 a month at office at the top, like on the top floor of a building. And I spent another $30,000 outfitting that office because one dude said that he didn't like the office. Nobody else said it up to that point. And I ended up, that was one of the reasons why I went bankrupt, because that was the beginning of the end. Right? Because now I had this big nut to cover, $2,000 a month plus internet plus electricity, 25, almost $3,000 a month I had to cover every month. And that started pulling it down. Then when that Google thing hit, where Google changed the algorithm, I didn't have any more leads. So I would have diversified my lead sources. That's another thing I would have done. I would have not listened to people, diversified my lead sources, and brought on a partner. So the next business, I had a partner, which, like you said, how did I know about the warrants? He told me. How did I know about all this other stuff? He told me. He was somebody else there that had more experience in things that I didn't have experience in, that helped guide me. And I guided him too down the tech path. So now you got like a convergence of 2 people who know what they're doing, and it's hard to break it when you got 2 people that's going forward. So those 3 things, I would have stopped. I would have paid closer attention to the bottom line, which is the money. I would have diversified my lead sources, and I would have gotten a business partner earlier.
So I want to dive into the business partner thing, right? Because the way I look at it is a business partner can almost be like it is a relationship, right? So, and I think I heard something where most business partnerships actually don't end up working out. What was it between you guys that made it work? Are you guys like 2 completely different people? So it kind of attract, what was it that made you guys work?
Well, me and him work out, and we got several businesses now that we work on together. We work out because we go down, like his field of expertise is not my field of expertise at all. Like I don't know, when he talks about this stuff, I don't know what he's talking about, So I just let him handle his stuff 100%. He lets me handle my stuff 100%. So we don't have any arguments. If you got somebody that's too alike, like you are, you're going to have arguments. I think we should do this. No, I think we should do this, because both of y'all are experts in this same thing. And that's what people naturally do, right? Is they get a business partner who are their friends, their cousins, somebody they knew from college. Now, those people are going to be more almost exactly like you. So that's what's going to cause the conflicts. And then they try to be friends with their business partner. Now, me and him are friends now, but at first we wasn't really friends. We didn't hang out. We hung out because over so many years of doing stuff together, now we became friends.
Yeah, they say
we weren't friends at first, though.
They say people that you make money with become the best friends.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So did you guys... Was there any ego there, or was there anything like, I got to understand his personality trait or it was just kind of more natural?
I would say like the first 2 weeks, it was like we're trying to figure out each other in the relationship. I remember it being some tension there. But after we kind of went down our own lanes, after like a couple of months, it was no tension or anything after that.
So when you guys sold, fast forwarding a little bit, when you guys sold the company, you guys split the profit 50-50?
Yeah, it was 50-50.
Okay, cool. And so what I want to talk about now is, so you have found a lot of success, and people hear like $2.5 million. That's pretty good money. That's life-changing money. And you and I were talking in the car, and you were like, "I'll keep working as long as I can." Right? I don't see retirement anywhere. Right? I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm curious, like what advice would you give to people out there that hear that, right? They hear like you enjoy working, and there's people out there that absolutely hate what they're doing. How can people take the steps to get to the point where they enjoy what they're doing and they can wake up whenever they want and do whatever they want?
I would say like you have to have some passion for something. I'm going to tell you this right now is that I've heard people say things like, man, if I ever got $1 million, I'd be done for life. I'll just put it into some kind of account, and I would just live off the interest. But the thing about having that kind of thinking will never get you the $1 million or the 2 million or 10 million, or whatever, because you remember you're in competition with other people. Everything you do, every dollar that you make is a competition for that dollar. And there's people like me out there that say, I'm never going to quit. So I'm going to keep working and working regardless of how much money I got. And you're going to give up soon as you get it. So the kind of mindset that will make you say, I'd give up soon as I got it, you would never get there. Right? It's because most people who are successful, they don't want to quit. Why would I want to build up a lifetime of skills, a lifetime of knowledge, a lifetime of talents, that one day I get some money and say, I just don't want to do it no more? That doesn't make sense. It's not even fair to to society itself, really.
Mm.
Because if I built up all these skills, why would I at 41 years old just say I don't want to do it no more?
Mm.
You know, I may take a break for a couple of weeks or something,
Yeah.
but I always want to do something and want to make money, and not even because I need the money, just because I like making it.
Mm.
It's like a video game. It's like the
Yeah.
score keeps going
Yeah.
up, right?
Yeah.
The better you do.
Right. Absolutely. Wow. So I'm curious, is there anything in the right currently that you're working on that you're trying to build up and eventually sell? Are you thinking about that right now?
Yeah, there's a couple of things.
Yeah.
We're working on me and my business partner. We got 3 things we're actually working on. One is a cycling studio in Odessa, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
that's completely automated, right? So is that there's no staff. You walk in. It's almost like it's almost like Peloton, but in real life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is that you walk the cyclist, the main cyclist or the trainer walks in, scans in, the door opens, she gets in there, her class starts. The people come in, they scan in, the computer gets them, tells them which bike to go to or whatever. They do their class. At the end of the class, there's cameras everywhere, so the cyclist or the class leader or whatever gets all her content. She's able to post it online and do whatever she wants. The class ends, we build a cyclist. We don't build the people, build the people who are in the class, and then and that's the end of the class, right? Is that we make our profit from the people who are running the classes instead of so you can charge whatever you want, $50, whatever you want for your class. But we just charge you for using the studio,
using the space. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And also delivering those video files to you.
And so with that, you obviously have an end in mind with that, and you probably want to, I'm assuming, make sure it works, maybe multiply the success, maybe do it in other areas, and then.
So our plan for that is to franchise it. So that's what I'm saying. From the beginning, when we starting the company, we're starting it with a franchise model in mind. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying. It's very important to start a company with the end in out, and because that's why we're working on the logo and the design and making sure that design is repeatable and making sure we write down everything that we're doing, who we use or whatever, make sure we got in the list. So when we do decide to franchise it, all of that, we can say, hey man, here's the list, here's who we use, here's the logos, here's everything you need to franchise this model. So it has to be done from the beginning. If not, it's a bunch of mess.
Absolutely. Cool. I want to transition a little bit. I think we have like about 15 more minutes or so. A hot topic right now that everybody's talking about, and you've been educating a lot of people on, is AI. And you mentioned it earlier in the conversation. Can you break down for the people out there that don't know what AI is and what this art is and Chat GPT and all this stuff? Can you break down what AI is? What's the future? I'm sure these are like questions you get all the time.
Yeah, now.
But for someone out there that doesn't know what AI is, can you break that down for them?
So AI, short for artificial intelligence. So what it means is that it's the ability of a computer to do anything that traditionally humans can only do. And people think AI is like Terminator, the Matrix and stuff like that, but it's actually anything that a human can do traditionally. Like facial recognition on your phone is AI, right? Being able to spell check in a certain way is AI. If you play chess on the computer, that's AI that runs that chess algorithm. All of those are AI algorithms that we've had for 20, 30, even 40 years, right? But now what everybody's excited about is what's called AGI. Actually, people are confusing the terms, but AGI is artificial general intelligence.
Okay,
and that's what you see in the Matrix. That's what you see in Terminator and those movies like that. Is general intelligence. That means that an AI system can do anything a human can do by itself. Right before, AI was limited to certain topics and subjects. And it could do like facial recognition. Well, now Chat GPT, you just ask it anything and it responds. That's general intelligence. And that's what all the excitement is about. So, like I said, the future for AI is pretty bright. And a lot of people are afraid of it, but I always say, like, look, if you're afraid of AI, I want you to explain to me why you're afraid without using a movie as a reference. And then nobody can do that because it's it's like the Terminator or it's like the Matrix. Okay, don't use any movies or any media and tell me why you're afraid of AI.
What if people say, I'm afraid it's going to take my job?
It's going to take your job, right? But that's one of the biggest things. But you got to remember, it's a movie called Hidden Figures. You ever saw that movie? It's a black woman. She was a NASA mathematician, and she found an era before.
Yeah, I
You
did see
saw
that
it?
movie. Yeah, I did see the movie. Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
so
Go ahead.
she was a mathematician and she found an error before they did one of the space launches, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was
Mm-hmm.
before the era
Yep.
of computers.
Yep. Yep.
Her title was a calculator. That was
Mm,
her title. What do you do for a living? I'm a calculator.
that's crazy.
So that job no longer exists,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's still jobs at NASA,
Yeah.
right? So what happens when AI, and remember, if you go back even farther, I think even 60% of the society worked on farms before the 1900s, before mechanized farms and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Now, what technology does is it just replaces the jobs we don't want to do. Then we move up the ladder, right? Then like
A
we don't
hundred
work in
percent.
manufacturing no more.
A hundred
Like
percent.
before you go back to the 80s, all of my family worked in manufacturing some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
In Puerto Rico, there was a big it was memory factories, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All that's either in China
Mm-hmm.
or it's done by computers or
Mm-hmm.
robots. So what technology does is moves us up. So we do jobs that are less desirable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's what's going to happen. Like a lot of the simple jobs that require, like I had a job one time when I was working on a factory line at Train. And I remember what I did is that it was these big air conditioner units that go on top of buildings. You can walk inside them, they're so big. And what my job was is that when it would come down the line, it would stop. And I would take these big insulation sheets and I would spray glue inside and I would paste the insulation on the inside of the unit. And then I'd let the next unit come. And I would do that job and my mind would just flow free because it was a mindless job.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to think.
Yeah.
I would think about all these ideas and I would do it. And the next thing I know, 5-6 hours pass and I don't even know what happened, But those kind of jobs are going to be replaced by
Yeah.
AI, jobs I call mindless jobs. They
Yeah.
don't require a lot of thinking. Yeah, I didn't, but was that the best place for a human to be? No, I could do something else. So I think the AI would take those jobs away. And another thing I talked about is that AI is actually going to have we're going to have a brighter future with AI. And people don't realize this, is that AI is going to do two things, right? It's going to replace all those jobs that we don't want to do. But it's also going to open up opportunities for jobs we want to do.
Mm.
Arts.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the jobs that can't be replaced with AI, right? Jobs that require human touch, human connection, jobs where people want to see human emotion and humans succeed and fail. Those jobs are going to be the biggest jobs on the planet. And when we're talking about art, we're talking about music, we're talking about dance, we're talking about like massages. Nobody wants a robot massaging them. They got those massage chairs in the mall. People still go to humans to get that done.
Right.
We're talking about jobs like athletics,
Mm-hmm.
and those jobs will be expanded.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having one NBA, you got 6 NBAs. You may have a local team in every city because let's fast forward 20 years into the future. Now, since AI is taking over all the menial jobs, everybody's only working 20 hours a week, maybe 10 hours a week, and whatever they want to do, right? So now you got a way extra, leisure time.
Mm-hmm.
You got 3, 4, maybe 10 times more leisure time you had in the past. What you going to do with that if you're a basketball fan? You're going to watch more basketball.
Yep.
The NBA can't handle that demand by itself. So now instead of having one NBA, you may have an NBA for people under 6 foot. You may have another NBA that's just the summer league. You may have another NBA that's just for people who, maybe the half court NBA, like the big 3 make it bigger.
Yeah.
So now you're going to have, because instead of me having 10 hours a week to watch basketball, I got 40 hours a week. Now I want to watch basketball all day. I want to look at everything. I want to watch everything. So now you have to have jobs, you have to have people to fill those roles. So now people who are good at basketball can get paid for it. Maybe down, here in Tampa, we have a league here where people pay to go to because they have more leisure time.
Do you think more leisure time equals to economic growth or just growth in society? Because the reason why I asked that is because I think recently it was a bill that proposed that we could possibly switch to a 4-day work week. And there's a YouTuber that was breaking down like, well, is this really a good thing? Right. And he presented the facts and he's basically saying for the countries that already work, an average of 32 hours a week, this is what they're known for. This is what they've created. And it seems like the countries that only work 28 hours, 32 hours, like the biggest thing that they've created was like chocolate or something like that.
Like
it wasn't anything
stuff,
it's innovative was what I'm saying. So, and he wasn't saying like, we should work 5 days a week or whatever, but My question is, do you think more leisure time is going to equal to,
Yeah, but
more innovation?
I think what he's referring to is like competition among countries, right? If that one country has their people working 6 hours a week, another one has 30, of course that country's going to win. But if AI is spread all over the world, everybody drops 50%. So the United States may be working 25 hours a week. Sweden goes down to 15. So Sweden still won't beat us. Because if you go back 100 years, people work 6 days a week. That was normal.
Yeah.
10 hours a day, 6 days a week.
That's fact.
And now we work less because we have less time, more time.
Yeah.
So I think because technology takes over a lot of the repetitive jobs that we needed people before.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Transitioning a little bit, I want to ask you, what does success look like to you nowadays? Because I'm sure when you were in your 20s, when you were my age, success looked different. Maybe it didn't, but what does success look like to you now? And how does it different from, back then?
When I was younger, I don't think I ever try to define success really. Let me see if I did. I would, like any kid, you think you're gonna be riding around in private jets and stuff like that. And you well, especially if you come from poverty, you think that you don't understand that there's different levels of being rich.
Oh yeah.
You're either rich or you poor. You one or the other. So there's levels to being rich, right? Is that you can low level, high level.
You can be rich and then compared to somebody else, be looking like you poor.
I walked in rooms where I'm like, man, I don't have nothing.
Yeah. So what does success look like to you now, though?
So my success really is being able to do what I want to do. Right? Is that I can I don't have to do any. If I told you before, if I wanted to quit right now, I could quit everything and just stop, and I'd be good for the rest of my life. My real estate income, stock income, all this other stuff, I'd be okay for the rest of my life. Now I wouldn't be I would be, still considered rich even by my income, but I wouldn't want to be stagnant like that. I wouldn't have nothing to do. My days would just run together. What would I do all day? So happiness to me is being able to do what I want to do. If I want to start a company or a cycling company tomorrow, I can just do it and start over. That's what I think success is. I got the capital, the know-how, connections, everything to do whatever I want to do. And most things, up 95% of things I want to do, I can do it. Now I can't do crazy stuff like buy a 50-foot yacht, and you can't do that. But I'm saying 98% of the things I want to do, I can do it. It requires money.
Yeah.
If I really wanted to.
I was going to say, even with the 98-foot yacht, I mean, you probably have the connections that can probably get the capital to eventually do it if you really wanted to.
Yeah. So it would take a while. It wouldn't be instant, but
absolutely.
I'm talking one of those huge ones. 50 foot's not that big, really.
50.
I could get that, but I'm saying the ones like Leonardo DiCaprio's. I don't know if you saw it. It's 200 feet, all black and got all the helicopter on top. Nah, I couldn't get that now.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, wrapping this thing up. One thing that we always ask our guests on the podcast, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Who's one person that needs to be on the Latin Wealth podcast?
There's a guy in Miami called Cristo Crypto.
Okay.
And I like him a lot. He kind of does crypto, but he also combines Christianity.
Oh,
and,
interesting.
So he's a good dude. So
interesting.
He'd be a good one.
Okay, we got to link up with him. But yeah, wrapping up this podcast. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode. A lot of great information on this episode. If people want to reach out to you and they have any more questions, if they don't already follow you, where can people follow you? And what are some things that you're going to be educating the community about? Maybe
Tall Guy Tycoon on all platforms. TALLGUYTYCOON. And that's on all platforms. And we talk about stocks, crypto, investing, and technology.
Yep. With that being said, you guys know where to find us at Latin Wealth on Instagram. Share this episode with one other person that needs to hear this information. Maybe you have a business owner or entrepreneur friend that needs to hear this information. Share it with them. With that being said, it's your boy Chris. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.
I appreciate it.